Just to get you up to speed, I've already made these stretchers. This is the dining table that I'm making. It's 1,930 millimeters long, 910 millimeters deep, and 760 millimeters high. I've already made these stretchers. I've milled up all the material as well for the legs, and I'm going to be fitting the tenons here and here into the legs. To give a clear idea of what I'm doing, here is the bottom stretcher, and it's going to be connected with an internal wedge tenon. The tenon in the leg is splayed out like a dovetail, and when you tap it in, you insert these two wedges, and as they hit the bottom of the mortise, they spread out the sides of the tenon, locking it in place. If you don't get this right first time, you've got to cut off the leg and cut off the stretcher and remake it. The top one, which is just for show, is a normal tenon, and this section is 50mm and this section is 100, and they reduce in width the same way as well. Oh, it's in time. Oh. I have to tap it out. Yeah. Give the hammer. Oh, I don't like doing this. My God. The joints are going up, but they are too tight. I don't want to have to deal with that during a glue up. That could only cause problems. There's too much tension, it could split the wood, especially since I've been working it in and out. So I'm going to go back through and just clean them up to make sure they are free of debris and a tiny bit looser fit, tiny bit. Now immediately I've found a chunk in there, so we'll take that out. Little corner that I missed. Didn't quite chisel all the way down in the corners. Yeah, that wouldn't have been helpful. There you go. I was just there sticking up in the corner. That was stopping it from going down all the way. It's fitting really nicely. It's just ever so slightly tight. It's gonna, yeah, it's just gonna make life a little bit hard when it comes to gluing this up. Disassemble this. Not very easy to disassemble. Yeah. I'm using this round cheek of my mallet as not to scuff edges. I'm going to come along and plane this before I glue it up. I should remove or attend to any dents that appear. There are a couple. That is number 3. Number 4 is the one I had a problem with. I don't know if you can see. Just there. That's where it falls off. And there's a tiny amount to take off. So these are all the components for the base leg assembly. There will be a piece that will connect the legs at the top. Become clearer in a moment. I'm going to just do the first bit of this. Slope of the tenon, the tusk tenon, faces up. Feels fairly tight. There you go. It's going in nicely. Still a little bit high on this side. Just gonna that's there. Number 3. 3 again. Okay. Drive that home. Much easier. Might need to loosen this one slightly. Number 2. These out of the way. Nice. I think there's a small bit of debris in there. It's not closing. No, I don't want to force it. Right then. So I ran into a pretty big problem. Oh, I say big, not that big. I had to reduce my shoulder line by 0.5 millimeter because when I cut the bottom tenons, I used a skill saw and had them all together, and then ran across to cut the ends of the tenons, which are hidden inside. And when I did that, the skill saw blade was not perfectly square. And when I cut them, it was really close. It wasn't just right. And because I used a marking gauge to scribe my shoulder line, the shoulder line wasn't square either, which meant none of the joints were seating just right and going up square. So I've come back on these joint lines ever so slightly, only as much as I needed to, and now they're sitting really nicely, especially this one here. And I shortened this one as well, but then realised I had to obviously shorten the other side of this assembly, so I need to come and take another 1/4 millimeter off this piece. It's got a gap in there, and it's not sitting just. It's really close, but it could be a little bit better. I say that. Yeah, these pieces need to come in, it needs to come in like this, and it won't because the shoulders are bottoming out. Not bottoming out, the shoulders are hitting the legs. It's not allowing it to come in. Whereas it's smaller here, so obviously it's splayed out like this. So the next step would be to take these shoulder lines back ever so slightly so that these legs can be parallel. I do the exact same on the other set so that they are parallel this way as well. In order to chew up the shoulder lines, I'm finding the lowest point across all 4 sides. And when I find the lowest point, that's where I'll mark the base of the line and take that line all the way across all 4 sides, and then come in with a wide chisel and pare it down to the shoulder line, pare it down to the tenon, and do the same on this side, and then take that length, the new length, and match it onto the smaller structure. That sounds good. Take my block plane, I'm going to lightly chamfer the edges. all the tenons are now fitted really nicely and square. It was definitely a bit of a fiddle, but that's to be expected. Oh, I want to drop that. The hardest part was definitely taking back the shoulder line and keeping it all really nice and square, and then putting that extra chamfer on there just helped really nicely when it comes to glue up. Next time I'm going to make the top. It's going to be another stretcher across the top of the two legs. That is going to keep them completely rigid to make a better frame, but it's also going to provide a point where you can screw up through it into the tabletop, because this whole thing is going to be disassemblable along its length. So this is going to be fixed piece, but the tabletop will come on, and then there'll be a couple bolt screws which will connect to it through the piece that we'll make next time. I also cut the wedges and split the tenons for that joint.